Ross here for nextlevelguitar.com. Today we're going to be working on behind the nut bends. These are kind of country sounding things, although there have been people that have taken it a lot further than that. The main example of behind the nut bends would be a guy named Jerry Donahue, who happens to be a personal friend of mine and former bandmate in the Telecasters. And I met Jerry back in the early 80s, and I remember being huddled over in the corner of a nightclub in Hollywood, swapping behind the nut bends. And then in the next few years, he just took that ball and ran with it. He would lock himself in his room for hours a day, and Jerry basically came up with a whole style of playing guitar behind the nut. And he would use ultralight strings. Like, I think his low E string was probably a 42. And he would make chords and then push all kinds of notes behind the nut and get really wild, crazy sounds. And today we're going to work on kind of a pedal steel type intro. It'll be in the key of A, and the chord changes will just be A to E and then back to A. Very simple. And so once again, let's talk about the type of guitar you would need for this. This stuff basically works best on a Tele. Once again, you don't want to use any type of like a balanced tremolo or a fulcrum, what they call a fulcrum tremolo. Because what you're doing, you're going to be anchoring notes, and then you're going to be pulling or pushing down on strings behind the nut, and that's going to cause that tremolo, like a Strat style tremolo, it's going to cause it to tip up a little bit, and it's going to throw the whole thing out. So you can use a hardtail Strat, but basically the best guitar for the job is a Tele, and preferably a vintage style Tele that has a deeper scoop and it doesn't have the bullet truss rod, because that's going to be right in your way. You need a lot of room to push these down, because you'll be pushing these strings down like a half step to a whole step or even more. A Gibson style headstock is not going to work. That little space between the strings and the top of the headstock is just too shallow. So that's why I recommend for this kind of stuff you use a Tele. So what we will be doing today, we'll be working on, we'll just call it a country pedal steel intro or a turnaround. And once again, it's in the key of A. The rhythm would be something like, I'll go ahead and play it up to speed, and then I'll go back and break it down for you. So. You can give it a little vibrato. Okay, so what we're doing here, it's like you're going to be making part of this E chord. Okay, so, and you're going to leave your first finger free, because that's the finger that you're going to use to be pulling behind the nut. Now, when I first started doing this, I didn't have very thick calluses on the end of my first finger, and it hurt. And I tried all kinds of things. I would take a cigarette filter and run the string through the cigarette filter, so I had like a little pad there. But after a couple of times, it would just shred and fall off. So if you're just starting out and doing this for the first time, once again, I would recommend using very light strings with like a 16 or 17 at the most on the G string, and maybe a 12 or maybe even 11 on your B string, like maybe a 9, 11, 16 would be your gauges from your high E down to your G, 9, 11, 16. And if you want to go deeper and do stuff like Jerry Donahue, where he would bend the low strings, then you're going to have to get even lighter string. But for now, that's what I would recommend. So what you can do is get one of those little red straws like they have on a can of WD-40, and just cut like an inch length of that straw. And when you put your strings on, before you wind your strings on the tuning post here, just run it through that little section of that little red straw, and that it will generally stay right there, and that'll give you kind of a pad until you're used to this and build up your calluses. It kind of looks dumb, but who cares? Anyway, okay, so we're going to have our second finger on the G string on the first fret, then our third finger on the second fret on the D string, the D or fourth string. And now we've got our little finger and our first finger free. And we're going to do what's referred to as a hammer-on. And we're going to go, you're going to hit the E note on the D string on the second fret. You're going to hit that twice. And now you've got this second finger already anchored on this note on the first fret on the G string, like that. And with our little finger, we're going to hammer on. Once again, we're on the G string now, the third string. And then as soon as you do that, you're going to hit the B string. You're going to hit that open. Now I go back and I hit, I've got my little finger down, I've hammered on, and I've got it down on that G string. And then I go back and hit that note after I hit the open B string. Now I'm going to go back to the B string, and I am going to take my first finger behind the nut, and I am going to push down on the string, and that is going to simulate a B bender that will pull the string in back of the bridge, or a pedal steel mechanism that has the rods and the pedals. What you're basically doing is you're going to pull the string to raise the pitch, and we're going to raise it a whole step. And we're actually going to bend it up to this note, which is it's a C sharp note. So once again, we're going to hit that B string open, go back to the A note on the G string, now back to the B string, and we're going to push down. And if you're not used to it, it's going to take some time. And once again, I recommend that little pad from the WD-40 straw. And you want to, that's the note, that's what you're shooting for, is that note. And that's a C sharp note. So. You can do crazy stuff like that. Now after you bend that note down, you can hit the high E string open. So open E. And after you hit that open E, this finger should still be pressing down on the B string behind the nut, and you're going to bring it back up like that. And then you're going to resolve it on that A note on the G string on the 2nd fret. Once again, the right hand technique is similar to chicken picking. It's kind of similar to banjo style, except I'm not using a thumb pick. I'll use a flat pick with these 2 fingers, my 2nd and 3rd finger. So that dot dot on the E note there, that's with the pick. The hammer-on is with this finger, my 2nd finger. The open B string is with my 3rd finger. Then with the 2nd finger, I go back and hit that A note on the G string on the 2nd fret. And you can let the notes ring and bleed in together. Bend that B note, that B string up, I'm picking it with my 3rd finger. And then I hit that high E string open also with my 3rd finger. And when I come back and drop that note down, drop that B string down, that's also with my 3rd finger. And then my that resolve note, that A note, is that's with the 2nd finger. Here it is from a different angle, so you can check out the right hand. So once again, this is Jeffrey Paul Ross for nextlevelguitar.com. I've got David's dog Miles here helping me, just keeping things in line. And I'd like to remind you that we have over 850 different styles of lessons for you to check out, beginning, intermediate, and advanced. So we'll see you next time.